I've already started this project, but I thought I would back up and get the camera out and shoot a video because this can be really a difficult task if you're not familiar with how to go about it, and also maybe I can share a few tips that will help make this process super easy. Three things that are most important. Number one, the right size solder for the job. Number two, the right size soldering iron and tip size. And the third is always clean your tip before you ever apply any solder to your board. And you do that each time you solder a pin. And in my case, I've got these pins that I'm going to be soldering to this board. And it can be a task that a lot of people dread. I don't, just because I'm comfortable doing it. And again, it starts with the right size solder, the right size tip, and keeping your tip clean. Can't stress that enough. So the other thing is, notice I'm working on a board. I'm not on a table that has any kind of a plastic coating, or I'm not working on any cloth, because I don't want to transfer any static to my board. So again, very important, clean that tip. You'll see me dipping that tip quite often, and that's just a habit. But whenever I get ready to solder, see, I'll clean it again, and then I'll apply the solder and then apply it to the board. So let's get started. What I've already done, well, first off, the tools. This right size solder for the job, something to clean your soldering tip with, and a magnifying glass. I can't stress enough how important this thing is, because what happens is, with these pins, as you start putting in the pins and soldering them, you want to check them as you go. And in my case, I did the first one and the second one. It doesn't matter where you start, but because I did the first one and the second one, now it's time to use this tool and check and make sure that I don't have any cold solder joints, or that I need to reflow one of the pins with solder. And so you can do two whenever you first start, because I can get to this row of pins on this side, I can get to this row of pins from the other side or from this side. So therefore, if I have a need to reflow a joint or reflow a pin, I can easily do that from either direction. However, if I go ahead and solder in the third row here, now if I need to reflow this row, it's really difficult for me to get my soldering iron in. So a tip for you: solder and then check, verify, and solder, check, and verify, and you should not have any trouble. So I'm to the point where I've checked these joints here. These are fine. So I'm going to add the next set of pins. So I'm just going to take the pin and drop it in from the underside here, or from the top side, and I'm going to kind of hold it in place and put this down on the table like that. And now what I want to do is, again, I'm going to clean my tip. And probably a good idea to move that out of the way. Again, clean my tip. And now I'm just going to put just a little bit of solder on this pin to hold it in place. Because now what I want to do is turn my board over and have a look-see at my pin, and I'm going to reflow that joint, and I'm going to hold that pin where it needs to be. And that looks good. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and flow the other two pins on this particular connector, and then go back and reflow the first one, so that and again, I'm going to be working from this side because all my pins are over here, so I'm working with the heat on this side because there's nothing to get in my way. So again, I'll go to the other side, and you don't want to leave a lot of heat on your board. You want to put your solder on there and get away from it. So again, and the other thing I'm doing is I'm actually holding my board, because I'm pressing. You want to press on your wires, or the pins that you're soldering, because you want the heat to transfer from the tip to the pin, and the only way you can do that is by putting pressure on it. If you just let it barely touch it, it's not going to transfer the heat. nor will it transfer the solder. So I think we're good there. Let me just verify. And again, you take your time and you look it over, and that looks awesome. So now I'm going to go back and reflow this first one here. And now I'm comfortable with that. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. Again, I'm going to put the pin in and then turn it over, set it down on the table here, clean my soldering tip. Okay, put a little bit of solder on here so that that pin will stay in position. And then I'm going to heat it and reflow it so that I can maneuver this pin. And I'm liking that. So again, I'm going to be working from this side because all of my other pins are on this side. So we're going to start, again, clean that tip. And then reflow that first one. Okay, then we're going to verify. And we're looking good. So just take your time. You don't have to rush this project. And before you know it, you'll be done. You'll be looking to buy the next board without the tips. That's one of the things with this board here. You save about it's not a lot of money, but I think it's like $6 by soldering your own pins in place. It comes with the pins, but you have to solder them. Now you say, well, it's not worth $6 to do it. Well, it's not. But if you learn a new technique, then it was worth doing. And you might get into a situation where you can help somebody else out by repairing something or soldering something for them, or if nothing else, just pass on the knowledge. I really enjoy the hobby, and that's one of the main reasons, is because I learned something and then I don't hesitate to pass it on. So we recheck all the joints now, and I'm liking all of that. So let's go ahead and continue on the other side. Now on this side, I'm going to go from the end here. So I'm going to put this first pin in place, and again I'm going to tack it. You don't need much whenever you tack it. All you want's enough to hold it. And you do this enough, and just like there, I got that in the right place the first shot. So I'm going to go ahead now and solder up these other pins. And then I'll give this board just a second or two, and then I will solder in. Reflow the first one. Okay. And I can check it. Not really important that I check it then, because I'm going to be adding another one to it, and I can do any reflowing I need to do from either side. But after you get the second one in, then it's really important that you check it as you go. So now I'm going to reflow this and put this pin in position. Now a little tip for you: whenever you're doing this, the heat's going to transfer down that pin. So I'm soldering the first pin, but I'm holding basically the second and a third pin. So now I'm turning my board because I'm going to be soldering from this side, because my pins are going to start over here. And so I'll start on the back side here, and it will clean the tip, apply the solder, clean the tip. And it works so much better whenever your tip is clean, because your solder will flow. and then I'll reflow the first pin, and then I will check it. And you want to check it now because, again, whenever you do the next pin, you're going to trap the previous one, so it'll be very difficult to get in there to reflow something if that needs to happen. You also see I'm using a pair of scissors here just as a prop to put a little weight on this board so it doesn't move around. Nope. Got it right in place. So again, clean tip, can't stress that enough. Clean tip is the only way to do it. Okay, and then go back and reflow the first one. Now, I'm not going to make you sit through while I do all of this, but you can see that I'm actually quite comfortable doing this. So I'll come back here in a few minutes and show you the finished board. Okay, so I've done all my soldering, and now I'm just verifying that everything is good. And here you can take a look. So don't be intimidated by having to solder some pins to a circuit board. It's not that difficult if you use the right tools and go about it the right way. So again, in closing, use the right size solder for the job. In other words, to do this job with this size solder here would be a mess. But to do it with this size solder here, you can see it actually went really well. So use the right size solder, use the right size soldering tip, and keep that tip clean, and you should have very little trouble performing a task like this. This only took about 15 minutes to do up, and you can see that it's turned out really well. Thanks for your time, and enjoy the hobby.